Welcome, everyone. This is the second in an ongoing series of discussions about the issues facing us as we confront the rising increase of social media, its influence, and its scope, and the advent, or at least what it could be argued to be the advent of artificial general intelligence. And of course, these two are not in any way independent. They depend on each other. They infect and involve each other in powerful ways. And if you happen to see the first video, Chris, my good friend Christopher Mastropietro, Jordan Hall, and we discussed sort of a 4 point uh, I guess call it a schema, sort of a set of 4 points in response to this. Today, we're joined, Chris and I, by somebody who I am getting to know and with increasing affection and respect. This is Andy Russell. Um, and Andy is going to talk to us about both of these dimensions, although he has a lot to say, especially about the algorithms within social media um, and and how those have played a very significant and increasing role in our sociocultural and political lives, and even in our ethic agency, if I could put it that way, our ethical agency. And so it's just a great privilege to have you here, Andy, and thank you. Like as I said, I've been just it's just been wonderful getting to know you, and I've been very entranced by your story. Maybe you could introduce yourself a bit and then start into like who you are and how you got here and why are you participating in this?
Sure. Well, first of all, it's always fun speaking with you. So hopefully we'll have a good time here
Yeah,
and
we will.
get into some concerning conversations, but hopefully get to hopefully some optimism as we get towards it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So my entire life has been basically the study of desire, and more specifically, irrational desire.
Mm,
Yeah. So we I kind of look at the human experience as, if you want to go into a religious framework or just as a framework, right? A soul hopping into a body, and we were never given a user manual how to make our perception work or make sense of our surroundings or ourselves. And each of our bodies and minds and perceptions are flawed.
mhm.
So, as in, like, there are bugs in our own systems, and some of that happened because of evolution from lower species up to now, and how our brains work and record memory, and therefore all the information surrounding us. There are shortcuts that we've developed as a species to get through, and with that, we walk through life um, making mistakes, huge mistakes. And somehow we become our own worst enemy and then enemies towards each other. So my earliest, well, I started getting into this probably in high school, but then in college, I went to Cornell for physics and mathematics because I like to understand how things work. If you understand how things work, you can make them better. And I discovered the human. And I discovered the human through some really strange freshman courses in abnormal psychology, which were all the studies that were being done at places like Stanford and Berkeley and
Right.
University of Chicago around how to influence people to behave badly. And it was remarkable to me how easy it is. And there was something wrong with that. But so I can continue that in my field of career. And I'm an entrepreneur 6 times over, ran a couple of venture capital funds, private equity fund, um, and all the stuff I was doing was around collecting information on humans, like a scientist, collect information, and then see how you can influence humans based on the information that you collect on them, right? Um, which makes sense in a world of commerce where, and let's just be fair about this, everybody's trying to influence somebody to do something. I want
Hmm.
this woman to fall in love with me, and I want to make a living, and I want you to vote for the same person. I want to be president, right? So, um, or I want to convince, a group of people to bring me into their organization, or I want to get on a sports team, whatever. You're trying to influence somebody to do something. So, as we got into the world of data and communications in a digital format and then one-to-one format through this or computer, um, wow, it became really powerful. And I did really well building digital media, ad tech, marketing tech, otherwise in hindsight known as persuasion tech, communication. Also used to own in a private equity firm, went to television stations, radio stations, direct marketing company, like across the schema of this thing called communications, otherwise known as transfer of information with an intent to persuade. Uh, then in 2014, when I was on the board of directors of the right or the wrong companies, and on the board of things like the Data and Marketing Association. And if you just think about those words, data and marketing,
Hmm.
those are two petrifying combined words with all the leaders of the biggest data brokers in the world that actually buy every piece of information about you since you were born, um, combined with the media companies. So like Axiom, Epsilon, Oracle, Alliant, but then also head of data and data partnership for Facebook, Google, yeah, and Google at the time
Wow.
owned
Yeah.
YouTube, and excuse me, yeah, Google owned YouTube and Facebook owned Instagram. And when I realized and it was in 2014, that for the first time ever, we could do data-driven persuasion in the format of video, which all happened in 2014. It couldn't have been done before 2014 because a bunch of data deals weren't done yet. And in 2014, hopefully most people remember the ice bucket challenge. Well, people haven't connected the dots that's when the autoplay of video went into live feed of Facebook on your device.
Mm.
Huh. And seeing up until then, I'd owned television stations. I knew that $12 billion a year was being spent on political advertising in the US alone. And 98% of that went to television, emotional storytelling through the lens of audio and video. Whoa, what if we could hyper target the exact right messaging to the exact right people that trigger the exact right emotion because we've got enough data on them? Like, holy cow, that's like a $12 billion industry. So I teamed up with somebody who was the CEO of a very large media company, and we went at building it together. It was my IP on how to do it, but I needed something he had, which was the readers of 20 different magazines, um, to study those human beings and basically psychologically profile them with all their offline data plus their online data where they pay attention to figure out what their subconscious fears were. And my very naive mind went to, if politicians could understand the fears of the citizens of this country, they would then make policy to address those fears and then
Wow.
campaign around those policies. And therefore, that is a way better democracy in trying to convince people to vote on things that may or may not matter to them just through spin, right? And using certain things are extremely complex, like tariffs, for example, are complex. And the ordinary citizen can't fully get their arms around like pros, cons,
Hmm.
and each of the arguments to go one way or the other. But if you could understand people's core fears, then we could figure out what the greatest population of the U.S. fears were, create policy around that, and then we could vote for that. Unfortunately, I was very naive, and turned out the CEO of this company was, and politics aside, doesn't matter to me anymore because democracy is democracy. People vote for who they vote for. but he was best friends with Donald Trump and the entire tech stack, everything fully programmed, warmed up, got handed to the Trump organization. And that was in 2015. And it ended up getting Trump elected. And then Steve Bannon, who we know was a huge advisor to Trump, took the same tech stack methodology and brought it kind of across the globe. And then we started seeing people having belief systems that were unbreakable. And we started seeing changes of society that were happening in ways that clearly weren't aligned to my values, in terms of basically hate, anger, and the other, right? Opposed to collaboration and let's lift all ships.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's that was what, I guess 11 years ago? No, 10 years ago. And ever since I've been on, I guess you might say, a warpath to fix things in an effort to heal people with like the human at the center of society.
Mm-hmm.
Because everything that can be done with these massive data sets to persuade people into fear, anger, and eventually violence can also be done to heal the individual. And it is my belief that if we heal all the individuals, we can actually heal society. So that's kind of the backdrop. That's what I've been up to for the past 10 years. And I also was quite aware that when AI got behind the stuff I was doing with a team of content creators and media buyers to be able to like basically get somebody to what I call a digital scream, what agitates them so much that they will react in a certain way. Then you could like echo that scream back to them and create whatever that reality is, their fear in their own mind, right? That it actually is their reality. And then you can up level their anxiety level to a point of being unbearable. And then you give them a solution to that pain and they'll do anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I knew that when the time came and AI can create content way faster than my team of content creators and media buying and surrounding people and following people everywhere they go, all the way until they complete whatever task you want them to complete, that we're in serious trouble, as in ability to turn humans into avatars or puppets.
Mm-hmm. And thank you for that. So
Thank you for doing that.
no. Thank you for saying that. For laying. I know that's. I can tell that bears some existential weight for you. Sharing all of that. That's what I want. That's what I was addressing.
Thank you. Yeah, it
Um,
was absolutely devastating. Put me into a very, very dark place for a long time.
So, before we turn back to that core topic, what is it like? What brought you out, and how is that relevant to what you're doing today?
What brought me out of the hole?
Yeah.
Huh. Sense of responsibility,
Mm-hmm.
fully,
Yeah.
um, which was, Oppenheimer syndrome. You know,
Right. Right.
now I've become the destroyer of worlds,
Right.
and beyond a shadow of a doubt, this type of methodology and surround sound, echo chamber, fear based communication is absolutely responsible for more deaths than Nagasaki and Hiroshima combined.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's the level of guilt and despair, right? And I've got a good mind, and if I've got a good mind to be able to create something like that, and I've created a number of companies, then it is my responsibility
Right.
to my kids, everybody's kids, everybody, all living things, to do my best, not just to undo the harm, but hopefully be able to use um, my my brain, my know-how to make things a whole lot better than they were before because it's possible.
Right.
And if something's possible, like it's what am I doing here on this planet anyway?
Mm,
We're all going to die anyway.
yeah.
And like my kids are kind of grown up and I did all the things and like so what's my purpose? So that's it.
That's powerful. I mean, thank you. I'm so there's there's two ways in which people might be hearing you. Um, so one issue is, well, look, you unleashed, you helped unleash this kind of, tsunami of bullshit in which people are just caught by what's salient. They're severed from a reflective capacity to pursue the truth. They're set at adversaries to each other rather than, dialogical partners that can. So you're undermining rationality in a very, very powerful way, and that like really makes people impulsive and controllable. Now, there's two things you can do, right? And these are like fantasy themes. One is you can try and wield the one ring to the good. I'm going to take all that machinery, I'll leave it in place, but I'll direct it towards a purpose that I really like. And I'm using the one ring for obvious reasons, right? Or you can say, no, no, we got to destroy one ring because nobody can wield that. No human being can wield that without falling prey to all of our capacity for corruption and evil. So I just want to give you a space. Which one of those two are you proposing?
If oh great gosh, that's a tough one. Um, Directly after 2016 and for the following number of years, uh, if I could destroy the ring, I would have in 2 seconds.
Mm, mm,
In 2 seconds, um, because I mean, it is just so powerful.
mhm,
I
mhm.
don't think people quite grasp, and it's scary and it's sad and it takes a lot of self reflection. How easy it is to hack the human brain,
Mhm.
how easy it is to persuade, um, in particular with these tools. And it is the most humbling thing ever to say I'm not the master of my own domain, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Or my thoughts behind free will or agency are not as um, solid as I thought. Right.
I
So
just
for the
want to I just
first,
want to pause for a second, and because I want to savor that. I mean, that's a profound, rightfully so, profound philosophical statement. There's
yeah,
some deep, like humility occurring because of like wait, like
yeah,
we are not we are not as self-enclosed and self-determining as we like to believe that we are. That's part of what you're saying. Is that fair?
completely.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we're influenced. I mean,
Yeah.
we come onto this planet and we are a body and DNA and a nervous system and all this stuff. But then we go about being taught. That's called being learning or being persuaded or being programmed.
Hmm.
It just is. We're programmable beings. And if you think you're not programmable, then you're saying that have the inability to learn.
It sounds
Right.
almost biblical. If we say we have no sin, we deceive ourselves, and the truth is not in us. That's what it sounds like to me.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah, yeah. And
so
so, yeah, so the question around free will and agency is like, it is a tough one. It
yes.
is the hardest one. But what do you do, seeing that you're not the only master of your own destiny, which we're not, because everybody else in the planet is setting off ripples in time and space, people bumping into each other and exposing us to different environments or situations or learning opportunities, probably more of the author of our own personal stories, right? And then how do you interact in that to make sure that we are uh, living to our true self.
Yeah.
And I think that comes back to your conversation with Jordan around what are our core values, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And what are the core values of us, me as an individual, and us as a collective community. But that's I I know you wanted to like go deeper on that, but I didn't fully answer your prior question. We
No,
can
no,
talk.
please, yeah, please return to the One Ring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I would have burnt the ring in 2 seconds, melted it down. Right. Um, but we are now in a point with artificial intelligence and huge data sets and chips and wearables and all this stuff where we actually, okay, yeah, things have been a little rough for a while and people are pretty angry and not in agreement and very polarized. But for the first time ever in the human species or in life as we know it, we have the ability to actually upgrade the whole human and life experience
Mhm.
to a point that is infinitely better than it's, well, infinite to a tough term, uh, ex- way better than it is today and has ever been. And a lot of that is, because the infrastructure that's been built around collecting of the data for 100 years or so on individuals and the wearables and the devices, this took so much therapy for me, just to let you know. Um, and taps into like a spiritual realm of, okay, things happened. I can't go back. They are here today. What do we do now?
Mm,
This
mhm.
is when we have to, like, existential risk time, like, like right now, right here, because this human experiment does not go much longer if we really screw this one up. So we can't.
So that's excellent. So let me just make sure I'm tracking. Where the let's say the option, the Frodo option to destroy the ring is gone. Like we're not. That's not really there.
And I tried. I
Yeah,
really tried.
I know, and I know, and I won't reveal any details, but I would like everybody to know that Andy showed a lot of personal courage when in that effort, and I just want to acknowledge that. Some of the things that Andy told me that I'm not going to disclose were like hair raising. Um, so we can't destroy the One Ring, and we don't want to do the Boromore thing either. We don't want to just take it up and use it. So we're trying to find something in between those. What is it you think you're nodding, so you think that's sort of basically right. What is it? What is it we're trying to do now?
But I can tell you what my hope is.
Of course, this is nothing but a discussion of hope, right? What we're trying to move from is fantastical hope to rational hope. That's what
Oh,
this
yeah.
discussion is about. Yes.
Okay. And this is kind of like, historically, it would be called fantastical hope. But in today's world, it's realistic hope.
Good.
Okay. Uh, we pretty much do have an abundance of everything on the planet that we need and for all.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's celebration time. Hurrah, human species, survival of the fittest. We made it. Like, it's time to celebrate. If we use our resources, and when I say our resources, I'm just talking about this thing called money, right? We AI, robotics, whatnot, enough energy to go around. Solar, nuclear, I don't care what it is. Uh, you know, the energy is going to be there. With energy, without destroying our environment from just complete extractive fossil fuels, right? We literally figured out how to do it now, or we will in the next year or two. Uh, distribution of food, got that. Shelter, we got that too. And then the most important thing is education.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Give anybody one of these devices at this period of time, they can learn how to be self-sustainable, grow, plant, build energy producing, solar power, off grid, blah, blah, blah. Healthcare can learn a lot right here, right? um, fun in community without as much fear of somebody taking what's mine. Because if that person over there is self-sustainable, they don't need what I got, which is also self-sustainable.
Mhm, mhm,
Um, so, but when I talk about irrational desires, like we missed the plot, or we lost the plot. Like that chapter is over of scarcity, and back with hunter gatherers, even agricultural revolution. Yeah, we had to hoard. We hoarded food because the next season there might not be enough food. So I want my clan to not starve, and if yours does, sorry, there's not enough food to go around.
mhm.
Um, but now we're in a really irrational place where we're hoarding resources that are literally food, clean water, electricity, education, safety from our fellow humans around the world, and sometimes like down the street, while we're hoarding ones and zeros in this thing called the cloud purely because of why. And I'm talking like, so I'm downtown Silicon Valley right now. I'm talking the amount of hoarding of ones and zeros in an artificial thing called just for ego or for pride or to win the game. But like I started saying this probably about 8 or 9 years ago. The human race, it's a team sport, right?
Mhm.
Like we gotta all kind of win together. And for those that are hoarding to that degree up at the tippy top, like French Revolution really did happen. And if people around you and in surrounding areas are starving or in pain or suffering or no access to healthcare, and you're just hoarding ones and zeros, enough to survive for like 50 lifetimes, it's not going to go well for anybody, right? So that's what so when I talk about irrational desires, we missed it. Like, ta-da, we made it. Now, what can a better future look like without as much effort, pain, suffering, and fear of somebody taking what's mine, and no need for me to take what's yours?
So you're talking about like sort of a new cultural ethos that we would adopt. A
Yeah.
shared. And so, what role
Otherwise
do?
known as belief system.
Yeah, well, more than it's a belief system, right? I'm trying to convey it's also what people identify with. It's also a way they look at the world. It's a way they inhabit their own agency.
Yes.
Um, uh, um, so, what role will social media play in that, or I should say, could play?
Um, well, in opposed to, let's just call, instead of calling it social media, what can we just call it communications?
Sure, please.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. The whole gamut of communication. Fair
Yeah.
enough.
So seeing weapons grade communication, which would be, so the algorithm behind social media and AI behind that,
Hmm.
can either polarize us even more and turn us against each other, or truly unite us as one species floating on this little pebble through time and space where there's not a lot of other homes for us out there that we know of. Um, one species under God, if you'd like to use that word, right?
Hmm.
And we can literally start taking care of each other and going back to what we did when we were children, which is more playing and creating in loving, compassionate ways and actually enjoying this thing called life. Like I know lots of wealthy people, I know lots of poor people, I know lots of people from around the world. Uh, it's hard to find those that are actually truly enjoying the thing called life. And
Yeah.
that's weird.
Yeah. 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 Well, that's a big door into. We don't necessarily have to go through it into the work that Chris and I do on the meaning crisis, and kind of the wisdom famine, spiritual famine. Uh, Part of one of the theses I have is that wisdom famine, that spiritual famine, that hunger for not just psychological meaning, but a more encompassing kind of meaning, puts us into a scarcity mentality. It's precisely because we're starving for that that we're in this scarcity mentality that drives a lot of the ills that you're pointing to. Um, does
But
that land?
I do want to come back to specifics
Yep.
around like the stuff I'm working on now.
Sure.
Right? Like, okay, cool, Andy, that was 10 years ago. What have you been doing except for crying and screaming? Um, so uh, most of the data that's been captured on us, and these are when you use your credit card, like that data is for sale.
Hmm.
They sell it to the big data companies, right? When you choose a seat on an airline, wherever you're going, where you went to school, how much money you make, where you've lived, how many kids you have, how many pieces of pizza, how many pizza pies you order in a given year, what size shoe you have, like all of it. Right? That's all captured. And when in your life, your economic situation, you were married, you were not married, you had kids, you were in school, like whatever it is. Um, so situational purchase behavior, all driven by desire, right? So if you think about everything we've done, every piece of data we have on us, except for our DNA, is a result of desire.
Hmm.
That's what's tracked. Even where we go with geolocation, like starts with desire. Um, Up until recently, pretty much all of that has been used for two things. So what is the business model behind the data? Right? One is your credit score. Right? So all this is sold to the banks to see, like, yes, we can give him a credit card or a loan or whatnot. Right. The other is so advertisers can persuade you to buy stuff. Right? And that is the business model behind media, not just social media, but like all media
Hmm.
is it's advertising to convince you to do something that may or may not be in your best interest. So now let's just flip it. All the data about you has been collected. And now through the stuff that I built how to do, I basically was studying where you pay attention,
Hmm.
what captures your attention, what holds your attention, what triggers a longer commitment of your attention. And then what is once something has your attention, where does desire strong enough for you to move your body, click, buy, do, sign a petition, all the way out into purchase or vote, protest, and unfortunately riot, kill. Right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Like that's all doable, right? But now we've got the wearables. Like I'm wearing a Whoop, or people have Aura rings, or all this stuff. Now think about that same thing. I'm collecting your real-time biometrics, right? So I can show you things and actually see what's happening to your heart rate, your blood pressure,
Yep. Yep.
your heart rate variability. We are getting closer and closer to wearable EEGs, so measuring your brain states, whether you're in a high alert stage or a uh, closer to a meditative state or a creative state. We have all these gut biome tests at home, um, so I can tell what's happening with the process of the hormones in your body. We know that in the belly, you guys know this,
Yeah. Yeah.
more serotonin is produced in the belly than in the brain. The neurotransmitters. There are at-home P tests to see how you're uh, processing and producing neurotransmitters and the things that make our brain and emotions work. Huh. Now I have that type of data on each individual. Game over in terms of persuading. I mean, I can literally trigger your adrenal glands to put out more adrenaline and cortisol and less, rest and relax just by what I show you. Just that's a petrifying state. Now let's look at it from the complete other side and just look at this as power, right? And power for good or for evil, power to control the human or to help the human. Right? So now I'm able to track everything you do, everything you eat, wherever you go, what you pay attention to, and your whole history, and compare it to everybody else who does similar things, and your DNA. And now, if you put AI behind it, which has access to the information that the human race has ever figured out all the science in the entire world, like the genius beyond genius, and in every subject matter, turn directly on you. And I say, okay, um, I want to be happier and I want to be healthier. And then, this whole, let's just use a buzzword because it attracts attention now, longevity. Longevity. Lots of people are investing in longevity. Who wants to live long if you live miserable? Right?
Mm-hmm.
But what if I can live longer and happier and healthier? Well, seeing we're just like a biological walking information collecting, processing, and sharing system with all the data on me personally, right? We can heal individuals. And remember, our society is made up of individuals. So imagine a bunch of me's, yous, individuals around the world are literally walking around in less pain, less suffering physically and emotionally. And this other buzzword of self-love, right? Oh, have you done your work yet? I want to be with somebody who's really done their work. That helps you actually get to that point of, appreciating the miracle of being human in this beautiful reality called Earth and actually enjoying. So what would that look like? Right? Because if you're actually enjoying your present situation, some of the meaning crisis, I think, starts to go away
Mm-hmm.
because you're not lacking.
Yeah, there's a
And then
scarcity.
maybe you can
Yeah.
literally flip the script and be like, oh, this is heaven on earth.
Okay.
Oh, whoa. What do I think? I'm going to go to heaven. It's going to be better than this planet. Right.
So, I mean, that's powerful. And so, what you're saying is, I mean, um, something that can, spiral us down into the depths of, sort of a kind of depravity,
Yeah.
it has the equal capacity to spiral us up into a kind of flourishing. Is that right? That's
100%.
right?
And for the first time ever in human history, we could do it.
Yeah. So there's a couple different things. One is, I mean, there's what we're trying to do at Sunday, which is exactly that idea to try and create a system for putting as much of that information in your secure grasp, and then structuring it in a way in which it is educating you to empower you, not to make you subject to external manipulation. And so that's sort of very convergent with what you're talking about, at least in principle. Yes.
Oh, spot on.
Yeah.
Because I'll say it again. Um, if it is not your data for your benefit, and if anybody else has agency over your data, you are owned.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I'll just go further. Right? I said the word an avatar or a puppet. I'll use a word that is a painful word, and hopefully it doesn't go over the wrong way with the audience. Uh, you become a slave.
Yeah, I think enslavement is not a bad word. I mean, it's not. It's the kind of enslavement in Brave New World. It's that kind of somnambulant enslavement where people are just sort of right. They lose their agency in an insidious kind of way. It's sort of like they like there's
I'll go further than that because, like, a brave new world is one scenario.
yeah,
A different scenario is, the history of humans and belief systems. If our belief systems are strong enough, we're willing to kill and die for our belief system. So I'm
yes,
talking more like Hitler. I'm talking more like Stalin. I'm talking more like Genghis Khan. I'm talking more like each of those, or Rwanda on steroids, where fear
yes.
and programming can literally turn us into uh, uh, slaves to the devil.
Fair enough. And I mean, I think the biblical language is appropriate. So
I
let's
think,
say
I think if we ever we're going to use biblical language,
now, now's the time.
now's the time to use it.
So let's say it's both of the classic dystopias. It's both Brave New World and 1984 in that sense. Um, but you're saying we have at least in sense like we have the power to move towards enlightenment just as much as we have the power to fall into damnation. I'm trying to use the
Yes.
language appropriate. Okay, now I agree with you on that, and you said like, and what Sunday is trying to do is right with that. So, but there's an issue here that I could hear a lot of people saying, and I think you'll have a good answer to it, which is, yeah, but what's going to turn it? Right? This is Plato's problem. This is Alcibiades with Socrates. Here's this beautiful, charming, intelligent, rich, beloved guy, and he's brilliant, and he hangs out with one of the great sages of all time, Socrates, and nevertheless he becomes one of the greatest villains in history. And this bothered Plato. It's like, and a lot of people are saying, well, like, I mean, he's a public figure, so it's not unfair. I've heard Sam Altman say, this is probably going to destroy us, but we're going to make a lot of money along the way, kind of thing. And it's like, how do you reach those people, or should we instead think of trying to, I don't know, steal the culture from them so that they can't have the influence over us that they currently have? Did that land for you? Do you see that when I'm trying to give voice to a question I can hear people asking? Yeah, but how do we turn it? Yeah, how do we turn it?
Like, how do we do that? Right?
Yeah.
That sounds nice, but tell me what to do.
Yes. Yes. Which is a bit ironic given what we're saying right now, right? Because if we tell somebody what to do, we're missing the plot a little bit, or we're losing the plot. But nevertheless, yeah. Please go ahead, Andy.
All right. So there are a couple frameworks. One is maybe this really is Judgment Day,
Mm-hmm.
and to realize that each and every one of us is right in this window, and whether it's 6 months, a year, or 3 years, this is the time to behave, like, because you're like, this is it, like, and I think that's probably the case, that this is Judgment Day for the human species. Okay, and how we show up right here and now. The next thing is it's the Lord of the Rings analogy is perfect. Like, no one person can hold that ring,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and
Yes.
probably no 10 people in coordination can hold that ring. Right. Um, that is a problem. In today's society, with um, so much power in a very elite group, how does the average person help be part of the solution? Right.
So does that bring open, like, we're talking about this, and not just us, but other people, about the idea of distributed AI as opposed to centralized AI as a way of trying to like distribute the responsibility, but also distribute the risk of corruption.
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure. So I know we're both friends with Tristan Harris. Did you
I don't
see?
know Tristan Harris. I would
Oh,
like to.
really?
Yes, I would
Oh,
like to.
Tristan's like a little brother of mine. He's incredible.
Well, I would
Um,
like to meet him. Yes.
okay, he just did his third TED talk. It was aired either yesterday or the day before.
Yes.
Anybody can find it on YouTube or whatever. And he talks about this exact dilemma, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is distributed, and that puts the power of God in everybody's hand.
Right.
And and that's can be petrifying, and is petrifying, because what people will be able to do with their own AI is basically make biological weapons, make viruses, or
Mm-hmm.
fly a drone with a bomb in it to anywhere. Right?
Mm-hmm.
That's scary. But if it's consolidated too tight, then yeah, uh, then we've got a human god,
Right. Right.
right?
Right. Right.
So it's somewhere in between, and but
So
so
does
yeah.
on that point, does that mean, I mean, this is another point we're talking about a lot, and it came up in the video. this can't be just a technological solution, even distributing the AI.
Yeah.
This is a cultural thing. We've got to build a new way of being with the technology. Is that fair to say too?
100%. Which is why, if anybody here hasn't seen, Tristan's movie, The Social Dilemma, it talks a lot about this, and this goes back many years now, about the algorithms and how they influence us and hack our
Mm,
emotions and our free will. Right? He also did I guess it was a talk somewhere which has gotten a lot of airtime called the AI dilemma. So it was a human dilemma. Excuse me, it was the social dilemma. Now the AI dilemma. So I've been referring to where we are as the human dilemma.
right, right, right.
How do we wrestle with the beginning of our conversation? Right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Is no, this is a human thing. So how do we evolve the humans to a new reality with what's happening in the world, with new technologies that are happening? I mean, nobody's ready for this. Like nobody. Um, Going back to a quote from Elon Musk, 9 years ago, you know, AI and robots will be able to do everything we can do better. And he goes on to say, there sure will be a lot of disruption in work. We have no idea how anybody's going to basically make a living, take care of themselves, take care of their families. So the amount that's coming in the next couple of years, we gotta prepare for that as individual humans. I believe it's the only way through, right? To focus on the power of all the humans.
Yes.
I mean, who controls all the money? All the humans. Who controls all the power? All the humans. Who's nice or not nice to each other? The humans. So I think we have to focus on literally taking care of all the humans and healing all the humans, right? And healing means um, including hate, anger, and somehow get over this thing called fear. And the greatest dilemma that we face with humans is we're witnessing the death of trust and truth.
Yeah, the trust apocalypse is happening, which
And
I think it.
without that, it's so. But through this, I mean, as Chris knows as a neuroscientist, um, the easiest way to it's hard to change someone's mind because neurons that fire together wire together.
Yes.
Uh, our brains have been evolved to conserve energy, right? So we go down, we see what we've seen before. We have cognitive biases, all this stuff. The quickest way and easiest way to change the mind is when we don't have the patterns from our past or past history to be able to predict what's going to come in the future. And
Yeah.
therefore, we are stuck in a position where like nobody will know what to do, which is internal chaos. It is at that very period of time where you can actually start rethinking,
Yeah. Yeah.
coming
This
up
is like.
with better new solutions on how to behave.
Yeah. This is also like. Well, two things come to mind. Complex systems, when they're stable, they have tremendous inertia and dampening power. But when
Mhm.
when they start to break down, like we're witnessing here, and they're going to break down more rapidly, as you just said,
Yeah.
that also opens up um, the possibility that individual events can make a huge difference to the system as a whole. And so, yes, is it Holderlin? Where the danger lies, so does the saving power also. Uh, but I wanted to pick up on another point, which is that everything you said about, I'm a cognitive scientist, everything you said is right about the biasing and the launching. But we also know, in fact, this is more recent stuff, that there are things called pivotal mental states, where people go into a mental state and the brain then, and it's largely like what you said, you put people into a situation where they realize my predictive models aren't working, but they have enough wherewithal that instead of what the brain does is it flips into a kind of hyper learning state. Okay, it opens itself up to new learning. And of course,
Yeah.
spiritual traditions have capitalized on this. Sorry for that term, that might not be the best one, but you know what I mean. Have made use of this repeatedly, to try and save people, orient them towards enlightenment. And so given that what we're talking about here is not just a technological change, there's aspects of how can we, how can we harvest that all that information in a way that's secure and given to the person on behalf of their agency. but also how can we create the correct culture of the distribution. But now there's a third dimension that I hear, or at least I'm proposing, which is, yeah, but we also have to get, there's a spiritual dimension in that. Like we've got to give people, I'll propose it to you. I think we're in a meaning crisis and a trust apocalypse, which is significant scarcity mentality. When people are in scarcity, they are short term, they are rigid, they are impulsive, and those feed into all of the stuff you're talking about. And you have to open people up. You have to give them a promise that there's a possibility, a believable possibility of meaning, of enhanced connectedness that can bring about trust. And that seems to me to be a spiritual dimension as well. Is that landing for you as well?
Completely.
Right. Right.
Absolutely, completely. And if going back to to the Bible, right? By the way, I'm I'm a very rational spiritual being that dives into the world of quantum physics to make sense of spirit and all that stuff. But I will go to the Bible for this. The apocalypse, right?
Yeah. Well, it also
Revelation
means revelation. Yeah, exactly.
Revelation is lifting of a veil.
Yes. Yes.
So lifting a veil of to a new reality, and a new reality which can be quite beautiful, can be really quite beautiful, if we you know, are able to see clearly. And it's exactly what you spoke about. And therefore, it is you want to call it a spiritual or religious experience or an enlightenment experience. It's just like it's a waking up, and and also realizing some of the programming that we've received for our entire lives um, isn't as relevant anymore.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It was relevant for all those times. Listen, capitalism, great innovation, got us to here. Holy cow! Uh, you know, at times, all the different religious parties, countries, like relevant. It got us to here. Right? Look what we've done with science. Look what we've done with agriculture. Look what we've literally we've have the ability to flatten the ability to learn. Like equal opportunity to learn, therefore equal opportunity to earn. Like, whoa, holy cow, we did that. All right. Now let's go to the next evolution. And that's what we're supposed to do as living things. Right. That's what we've done forever, ever before it was us. 4 billion years ago, is continue to evolve. And so it is time for a revelation and a quick evolution to evolve to the next state of what it means to be human, otherwise known being kind.
Yeah. Being kind, being connected. I'm going to stop talking because I've been doing a lot, because there was a lot I wanted to uh, uh, talk to you about. I want to turn things over and make proper space uh, for Chris. I doubt I'll be able to keep my mouth completely shut, but I do want to make space now for Chris to, because I'm sure he has some very interesting angles on this that I haven't explored.
Yeah, I've swallowed a lot of them in the meantime. But Andy, I'd like to know, can we go back way back to the actual methodology of the behavioral nudging? I'm craving more detail to the degree that you can elaborate and feel comfortable elaborating.
Sure.
Because I'm interested.
Chris, just quickly say what you mean by the behavioral nudging, because we haven't actually used that term yet.
So, okay. One of the things I'm hearing, this is based on this conversation, but also previous ones that we've had and some knowledge I have of the topic, because I used to work in privacy from a public policy standpoint. And this is something that vexed all of the people who are trying to codify privacy laws. And this came to light in particular because when COVID happened, a bunch of people went and started doing remote work.
Mm-hmm.
And then employers started to deploy these surveillance software to basically monitor their employees and track their movements when they got up to go to the bathroom, how fast their keystrokes moved. And basically what they found is that they could aggregate, just as any number of the app service providers that we could name, they could aggregate all kinds of information about a person that completely exceeded the scope of their professional identity. and penetrated some very personal details about their competence, their skills, like you said, Andy, their sources of attention, where they look, how long they look there, how long they linger on this web page, where they browse, how long it takes them to draft a slide deck, how well they spell, how often they're spell corrected, that kind of thing. Like these minute details that can reveal very, very intimate details about a person's cognitive complexion, the things that vector their attention, and some things even about maybe their personality type and their disposition, just from how they work every day, let alone where they go shopping, their love life, their travel habits, their spending habits, that kind of thing. So this all came to light in a very potent way, and nobody knew what to do about it because it completely disintegrated the boundaries between how a person acts in their personal space, how a person acts in a professional space, and all these boundaries were just revealed to be permeable. And a person could no longer change clothing when walking from one room into another, right? So they're denuded, they're stripped in a sense of their clothing. It strikes me that there's something quite pornographic about the kind of knowing, the kind of knowledge that is actually in play here. It's not the kind of knowing of a person that we think of when we think of knowing a friend, knowing a colleague, knowing a family member. It's the kind of knowing that we think of when we think of how we examine an animal. We turn them over in our hands, we look at their features, we view them as though from above, not at eye level. And so there's something dehumanizing in a technical sense, not even in a moral sense. I mean, we can get to that. In a technical sense, there's something unhuman about the way that we behold someone when we strip them and put them into a series of categories. What I'm hearing you say is, listen, all the things that we can infer about a person, when we add up all of the data we can collect and put it against especially biometric measures, we can basically not only understand what levers pull and push their desires and fears, but we can actually put our thumb on the lever, on the scale. I'm mixing my metaphors, pull the lever, put our thumb on the scale, and we can actually kind of like direct them through the maze like we would a rat in a lab. And we can treat them as we would an animal in a controlled setting where we're knowing exactly what strings to pull, what doors to open, what doors to close, and we can guide them by providing the right incentives this way and that, and we can direct them from the beginning of the maze to the end of the maze. And it might take some time, but with the right perseverance and with the right modeling, profiling, we can actually do it. And so is that all fair to you so far, Andy, what I've said?
Perfect.
The way I've characterized this? Okay.
Perfect.
So
perfect and more.
And more. Okay, so it's even more severe than that. But let's start here. I'm interested, like I would love to know, I don't even know what I'm asking you for, Andy, if there's a case study, if there's an example, if you can just like walk us through what this could look like in practice. And if that's not available to you right now, that's okay, because there's another question I have about all of this. But I'm hungry for some of that detail because I think it makes it more real. Right now we're talking here. I'd like to know what this looks like for the person and just how exposed they really are.
So, Chris,
really are.
I just want to make sure I'm understanding. You want sort of what it might look like of an individual who starts with one belief or goal and ends up with one radically other than that is not in their best interest,
It doesn't even have to be that dramatic. It could just be directing to a purchase, not even directing to an ideological belief change, but just what kind of information are you actually aggregating and synthesizing? And then can you explain just with a little bit more detail, like how you're actually making use of the information, how you're putting two and two together, how you're adding all of this up and determining how to push the person?
So I'm curious if you're asking me to explain on this conversation how to build the weapon, so everybody can watch and see it. And maybe that's valuable to do, just so people are aware of what's being used against them. Okay.
I
Listen,
am.
I know. That's what I thought you were saying.
Yeah, I am. Because I still think that I still think that the raw reality that we're talking about is actually a very difficult thing to get our imaginations around.
It's really hard.
And we need to
Right.
understand this in as concrete a way as possible. That's kind of
So
how I
let me
feel as I
try.
listen. Okay.
Let me try and do this without getting overly technical, because this is technical, right? Okay. So we all still have mailboxes, and in our mail every day, maybe we'll get 3 pieces of what we refer to as junk mail. That piece of junk mail costs $1 just to send to you. And your chances of opening it's like 3 or 4%, and your chances of actually doing something with even smaller. Right? It happens to be the most expensive format of marketing that there is. But you still get that mail. Like, why? Like, why is that? So when I talk about all of your data being bought by these huge data companies that aggregate basically the journal of everything you've ever done in your life, everything you've ever purchased, every show you've ever watched, like all this stuff, right? And I've got that on you, Chris, right? And say I'm a company called Experian, huge data company. And they've got these records on 10 million people in the US. And I'm making up that number, but it's probably that or more.
And these are not de-anonymized. These are not anonymized. These bear the names of their
You
subjects.
give your home mailing address.
Right. Okay.
Because when you use a credit card, it's got your home mailing address, like the whole 9 yards. It's like, what is that central link to all your information? And historically, it's been your home. Okay? So there are 10,000 different direct mail campaigns that go out in this country every day. But you're only getting 3 pieces. Why aren't we each getting 10,000? Well, it's really expensive. Right? So what these data companies do is they go through, say, Amex comes to them. We want to do a direct mail campaign, snail mail, whatever campaign, to try and get more customers. You have a list of people who are highly likely to want an Amex card. So, or Amex Platinum, let's call it that, right? So Experian will go to its database and be like, okay, who out of these 10 million has an Amex Platinum? It's just one line on the 100, 200,000, whatever it is, a lot of data points on you. And let's say they find 50,000 of them. Then you're able to run a data inquiry across those 50,000 and say, what do they all have in common? What are the data pieces that they have in common? This one wears, they all, I don't know, this much income, went to this kind of school, like whatever. Whatever that unlock, that combination lock, they're able to do it. And then they're able to go through the entire database of 10 million people and say, okay, who have done all of that, but not yet bought an Amex Platinum? Okay. So it's predictive modeling off of personal data sets compared to a large enough cohort. Okay. Now they're like, okay, good. Christopher is more likely than most people because he's got the same data criteria. Now, so that's the first way to start, because this has been going on for a long time. Okay? Now, the stuff that I was able to figure out, and it's very significant, back in 2014, remember I said the way that they sent you this information is via mail. They couldn't directly target you. They could target a household with television commercial, but like lots of waste for TV, video, whatnot. Radio, not a clue. So all that kind of branding stuff, like where does emotion come from? Where do you first put the idea into somebody's head that they might want to get, Amex Platinum? That's called branding, right? So there's never a way to connect audio, video, branding towards that kind of direct targeted marketing. Right? In 2014, one of the big data companies bought a company called LiveRamp, which I happen to have been one of the first investors in like 10 years earlier. And LiveRamp was basically collecting 2 pieces of data off of every person on the internet, which was every time you did an e-commerce transaction, you put in your credit card and you put in your email address. Whoa, holy cow. So credit card is tied to all of your data and your home address. Email address, whoa, that's how I can find you on the internet because you sign into Google or Facebook or Amazon with an email address.
Mm.
That was the first bridge, okay? And the reason why Axiom bought LiveRamp is because they had figured out that people can have up to 7 different email addresses. So now the data companies went into a land grab to attach as many of your Christopher email addresses as possible to all that offline journal spyware of your entire life, right? When that happened in 2000, and so Matt, so as you know, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Google. Now that's pretty much at the time. That was all the because Google's also all the display ads. They bought DoubleClick way back when. That's everything. That's your digital influence space, right? They didn't just, so they went, and this all happened when I was on the board of the Data and Marketing Association. I told you that they had a data and data partnership for Facebook and Google. We're also on that board.
Mm.
So Facebook went to all the data company and say, here are all the email addresses we have for people that have signed up for Facebook and thus also Instagram. Right? Hey, data companies, do any of you have that email address on your data file? Once they said yes, they were not only able to sell all the offline data, your entire surveillance capital since the day you were born, behind the scenes to all the biggest digital media, social media companies. They also sold all the email addresses. Whoa. Okay. Directly after that, Facebook started something called custom audiences, which is basically the exact same thing as direct mail or snail mail, which they said, hey, Amex, if you've got a list of all of your cardholders, now you can come right to us, right? Upload those email addresses and we'll find them for you.
Yeah.
And because we've got all that other data on everybody, I can do the same thing. I can tell you who else out there on the entire internet ecosystem where Facebook, Instagram has all the similar surveillance capital data as those people who haven't yet bought the Amex card. Right? So that's also in 2014. And then the Ice Bucket Challenge happened with like, oh, wait a second. Not only can I find the people who are through predictive measures, past behavior means they're more predictable to want the Amex Platinum, I can now give them audio and video in emotional storytelling.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So what I realized at that point in time, first of all, you had to be in the room of all these things and have build all the infrastructure data platforms that went into all this stuff to even know that. But what I realized was, okay, emotional storytelling is about emotional storytelling. And just because you have this huge group of people, think about Johnny Walker, the liquor brand. Right? Imagine you did that for all people who drink Johnny Walker. You take all of the people who are my customers, Johnny Walker, find them, find other people who've got the same characteristics. And I did all this. Like I was doing all this. I go, So the number of people it gave me that are likely, basically are people who drink scotch, nothing to do with Johnny Walker. And if you think about that, like some woman in Chinatown drinks Johnny Walker, a cowboy in Texas drinks Johnny Walker, and a frat boy drinks Johnny Walker. The same emotional storytelling will not work for the same people. Okay. So what if I had a cohort of, and it was a company that I had, it was called the Inside Hook, and it was a curator daily recommendation via email for affluent guys who had plenty of everything but no free time. So we curated, gave them recommendations on best ways to spend their time and money. Therefore, they trusted us because we always fulfilled on that promise. And therefore, we were able to bring in relevant advertisers to them and do it in our own voice to influence them to buy what we thought was in their best interest. So I had 3 million people who signed up. By the way, Rob Lowe was part of my team as a contributing editor. Tim Ferriss was part of my team. Esther Peril, it was an incredible company. Right? What I was able to do over time was, so I took those 3 million wealthy guys who had just a little free time, plugged them into Facebook, found 80 or 90% of them, said, how many more do you have? And it told me 50 million. I'm like, that number's wrong. There are not that many affluent guys in the country. They go, huh. So if I'm sending this email, because they opted into it, like saying, I have everything, but I'm too busy to enjoy life. That was my first signal, power signal, right? But seeing everybody gets however many emails and our email inboxes are flooded. If they're not opening up on the subject line, they're not opening the email, then I'm actually not the right medicine for what ails them. They said, oh, bad data. How many people always open up? And it turned into 800,000. Now I did the same exercise with 800,000. Now it came back with about 20 million. Like, that's a more accurate number. And I did all the census stuff to figure out what is the right number. Then I said, okay, because I'm tracking it. So if you think about it, so now a real signal is it's coming in your inbox. You read the subject line, you move your body, you click on it, you open it. What if then you read it and then click on a link? That's serious signal data. So now I started tagging all the subject lines and all the content to see who always opens up and always clicks on stuff around expensive watches. Okay, this was a lifestyle thing. It came down to 35,000. Remember, I started with 3 million, went down to 800,000. I'm at 35,000. Now I upload that into the system. Now it tells me 6 million. Well, I go to Tag Heuer, I go to Rolex, I go to Cartier. I go, what's the total addressable audience of wealthy men in the US that might be in the market for one of your expensive watches? Every single one of them. So, we hired all these consulting firms, Bain, McKinsey, somewhere around 6 million. I'm like, I go, do you know exactly who those people are and how to reach them? No. I do. And you know the emotional storytelling that will trigger them to develop an emotional relationship to your brand, put it into their head when time is the only thing that matters by this, right? I had some of the best creatives in the industry. So then I started doing that, right? In creating the emotional storytelling. And then so from there, right? Because your email, I can follow you anywhere you want with your email. So now when somebody watches the full 30 seconds of it or 1 minute of it, which is a long time to pay attention, and then they click on something and then sign up for a free this or free that. Whoa, that is signal, right? And all I got to do is now start pumping back to them all over the place, how their parents are getting older, their kids are getting older, they're so busy, they're not having any fun, blah, blah, blah. And literally, and then play the song Cats in the Cradle and the Silver Spoons then, right? Really? I'm going to grow up and be like you, Dad? And every guy's worst nightmare. And then I was able to follow them, impression them, blah, 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 until they went to the Google machine and hit search, gift for son, gift for wife, new watch. Then I'm able to literally buy the first term, tied directly to that. And when I clicked on it, I was able to follow them all the way until they used their credit card purchase, because in the credit card purchase was sold back directly to me off of the email address. But I proved it full. Now, with a big media company I told you about, where I did it for politics, this company and the CEO's name is kind of a household name now because he was the lead witness in the Trump trial because he buried, the Stormy Daniels stuff with
Right.
National Enquirer. If I had all the email addresses for all of those magazines, then going back to 2014, 15, I could start sending out emails to 5 million people around things that people might want to vote on: climate, healthcare, taxes, economy, immigration. And now I'm studying again open rates, click rates, whole 9 yards. And I was able to find those people online, predictive modeling, find everybody else who might be like. And then what ended up happening is surround sound marketing. They're coming across the border and they're going to rape your daughter and they're going to steal your job. Right? Hardcore, therefore your greatest fear, because I'm measuring fear, right? I'm measuring pain. What do people want is what they'll open up on, what they'll buy, because they're lacking something, right?
Mm-hmm.
But this was all around, as you see in today's world around politics, the whole thing's around fear, right? If you can hijack what somebody's fear is and actually place that fear in their head, then you can actually then start creating the more and more content and follow them every single place they go. It's not just, that's why I say it's not social media.
Yeah.
This device, that device, it's everything, everywhere, all at once, creating that reality until I agitate somebody. And then the second, you get somebody to sign a petition, they are 10 times more likely to do something. They're in. And then when you get somebody to wear a hat, oh my God, now they represent the tribe. Now they become part. Whoever's trying to influence you, it's flipped. So they're here to help you. And therefore you become the soldier, right? So I'm hoping, and by the way, we can now track with, geolocation. Like, did I get somebody to go somewhere? Did I get somebody to vote? Did I get somebody to go to a rally? Like, all of it. Like, it's surveillance capital. And now with the wearable data, it is infinitely more powerful. I literally don't have to just pay attention to where you pay attention. I'm listening to what your body is telling me. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And Chris, as we should all know, the best way to get to know somebody is ask them questions. Basically what I was doing. By giving them content, I'm asking them the question, does this matter to you? If they engage and they dig in, they give me a response, I listen. It's deep listening. Otherwise, in a negative term, called surveillance.
And so the point is, each one of these decisions seems freely taken, but it's actually being, nudged, to use the phrase. It's being, right?
Yeah. So it's worse than nudged, because if I can know, like, how deep you go into religion, or what you've studied, what you've read, what videos you watch, who you follow, blah, blah, I can literally hijack your neural network and not just predictive model what you would want to do next. I can force you to do it.
Yeah. See, this is
That's why I talk about slavery. I can get inside of your head, or the AI the algorithm can get inside of your head, in your body, and know how to control you to a degree, with so much more information than we have access to about ourselves and about our surroundings,
right.
that it controls us. Control is the right word.
I did before, Chris. I really want to emphasize this, because as a cognitive psychologist, I know what most people in the audience are doing. Yeah, that's true, but not about me.
But not me.
I have free will, right? And I just want to put that on the table and say, no, like you don't have special sauce that exempts you from this.
No. And
Go
I
ahead.
think, John, I think that's so important, right?
Yeah.
Because listen, we both know a lot of smart people. And everybody points to, oh my God, everybody else has gone crazy. Everybody else is persuadable.
Yeah.
And listen, and that's why I put it. It's not our faults. We dropped into this weird operating system that's quite flawed. Everybody else is walking around with weird operating systems. It's quite flawed. And the greatest flaw is to be how we make sense of anything, and our cognition, right? And therefore, it's okay. We're human. Yes, we are hackable. Listen, I built how to do it. I am hackable. I'll be the first one to say it. Right?
Me too. Me too.
Thank you.
Andy, when you were talking, first of all, thank you for sharing all that. That's exactly what I was fishing for. I'm very, very happy now. Not about the fact of it, but of having the detail. There's so much to say about this, but one of the things you said earlier was that, okay, we can't destroy the ring. That window is closed. That opportunity, if we ever had it, it's behind us. And also it's true that no one person can wield all of this, or no one small coterie of people can wield all of this. They can't be the Boromir, as John put it. It's not 100% clear to me how we can all, in a distributed sense, wield it without necessarily becoming Boromir in this analogy, but maybe I'll put that question aside for a moment. If it is an either or, it's not 100% clear to me how we're avoiding the Boromir syndrome, even if we use this for good. I hold that as a question. That's not primarily what I want to ask, though. You were saying before that, now you've taken up this, you've taken up the responsibility of trying to repurpose the creation. This is created. It can't be uncreated. So if it's created, how do we use this to, if we're all hackable, and if you and other people have come up with the formula for the hack, there's no way to get around the reality of us being hackable, but all we can do then, if I've understood you right, I'm kind of being a bit crude in how I put this back to you, but tell me if this lands, is the only way that we can actually make good of this, of what's been done, is to use the hack for our own good, is to learn how to hack ourselves with our own agency, with our own sense of purpose, such that we can intervene. If we've learned how to intervene in the system of levers and the system of fears and desires that make a person move, and we can learn this about ourselves, about our own system of behaviors, about our own system of levers of fears and desires, then we can intervene in our own system for our own good, rather than having some external force intervene that has no attention to our good. Is that fair?
And that's the Socratic proposal, of course.
It is. I have a question about this, though, which is, one of the things I think is at stake here, not in a consequential sense in terms of the mechanics of the harms, but in a broader philosophical sense of, like, what does this do to our sense of what a person is? We're getting this microscopically mechanistic. By that I mean, like, this helps us, this kind of tech, and minds like yourself that have figured out how to make use of it and how to understand its function well, give us this opportunity to see the human being as a complex machine, and to see the dynamics of that machine on a level of detail that is perhaps more incisive than we've ever been able to before. And that's tremendously useful insofar as we can actually pick patterns up we could never pick up before, and we can intervene in ways that could be very helpful medically and all kinds of ways. So I don't dispute that for a second. Okay, consequentially, we can actually intervene in ways that could be helpful for the person, no doubt about it. My question is more about what it does to our idea of a person. That if part of the problem that we're facing in the meaning crisis, quote unquote, is that our idea and image of the person has become more mechanistic, a machine composed of parts, and our only way of understanding ourselves is knowing what parts to push, what levers to pull, what buttons to press, then the solution, if it exists within the same problem frame, is also mechanistic. It's also just a way of trying to intervene in the system. Now, I'm not saying this is true, but to me, it's a very important question to raise, which is, I can see how many of the concrete harms that are perpetrated by these mechanics could also be solved by these mechanics. What I don't yet understand is what happens to our idea of a person, what it means to know a person, what the essence or soul or spirit of the human being is, if we know him as a reductive set of levers to pull, as a reductive set of buttons to press. And if the solution requires us to buy into that model of the person, do we simply have another version of the problem?
Great, phenomenal question. And I have thoughts on it.
Please, I knew you would.
This is all I think about. I think about it and how to build a solution, but like this is, so, you know, I don't care
I
what.
just want to be clear. That's what I was trying to get at about using the ring.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's the point.
I know, and it still seems to me that we, with all of these good intentions, are still operating within that side of the either or. We're operating with the Boromir, within the Boromir analogy.
So let's go to all the scriptures. And pretty much every scripture out there, there is a God figure and a devil figure. And one of these figures is trying to put ideas into our head to behave well. And the other figure is trying to put ideas into our head to behave poorly. Is that fair? Right? I mean, all the scriptures I've come across.
I follow. Continue.
If you want to call it the good wolf and the bad wolf, you want to call it devil and angel, like every scripture, every belief system I've ever seen, right, and that's called competing two different, or at least two different beings, if you want to call them beings, trying to influence us. And the one thing we've ever had, and this is where free will does come down, we get to decide who influences us. Period. We get to decide. Right? Now, if we can look at it just as that, right? The devil is at work trying to put ideas into my head that are not core to my values, like harming others, right? Being greedy, being selfish, causing suffering, right? Then, wait a second, that's not who I want to be influenced by, right? And on the flips, and I'm talking about my soul, on a soul level, right? Because both God and the devil, I'm just using that framework, right, are both working with the same raw material, whether we're a machine or not, or if we're a soul stuck in a biological machine, we're still the soul. Okay? And both of those competing influencers are at work on us. And we get to decide who to, right back to the original thing, who to pay attention to, right? And when you realize that the external forces around media in general, not just social media, right, are trying to persuade us. So, like, are the individuals who run the media companies bad, or has the devil gotten in their head? A greater influence on them? Or are they just a soul inside of a thing that got, their security level got broken and they got manipulated by the devil or whatever to do harm's work without even knowing that they're doing harm? They're just playing in the system, right? So I do believe we absolutely have free will. We have free will to decide what we want to be our North Star, what influences we're going to listen to, a greater, like all of humanity, whatever, soulful interest. We can determine good or evil, right? Like people say, oh, good, evil, subjective. Yes and no, right? There is a commonality amongst humans that making other people suffer is not a good thing, right? Um, and yeah, listen, we do have to work in our flawed operating systems with all the chemicals and biology and our brain and our nervous system, but it's pretty damn good. It's flawed, but it's pretty damn good. And holy cow, I've been happy, and my body's felt good, and I know what it feels like to feel good, and I want more of that, right? And then if I've got a lot of it, I want other people to feel that too, because it's fun to be around those kind of people. Right? So yeah, listen, physics is physics, science is science, and it's a bunch of math. And perception is we all live in our own realities, and beneath all of matter, it's just frequency anyway. Like, what are you even talking about, right? Cause and effect and whatever. We're just therefore predictive machines. No, we've got the free will. We can choose to be kind, right? We can choose to put positive ripples into, as time and space unfolds. Right? We can choose to be optimistic of a better world of abundance, so we don't have to keep from others. We can share wisdom. We can be vulnerable and share our flaws, knowing that people will take care of us because we take care of them. Right? It's the fundamental basics things of what it means to be human, what any scripture says across the board. And there's a commonality in that. So yeah, we're individuals, but there's something very common about us and nature and the beauty, the miracle of being able to be human.
So I want to respond too. Um, I think the idea that we are machines is, I think, largely becoming moribund. I think that's not uh, even a biologically sort of sustainable model. Um, like, I won't get into the details about this. What happened here, though, is something I think that's important, which is, right, when I'm explaining you, it is necessary to talk about all the stuff that Andy's talking about. Is it sufficient to account for a person? And what I think we're saying here, I have my qualms about free will, but what we're saying is there is something in us that responds to the true, the good, and the beautiful above and beyond that which in us which responds to, just this stimulus or that stimulus. And I think that is something we're trying to appeal to here. Um, why I think that's important to put it that way. First of all, the free will thing is a huge debate, but because this is what I was trying to put my finger on when I was saying, well, this is Plato's point, that ability to respond to the call can't be determined itself. That Plato's point means I can be Socrates in front of Alcibiades and he may not respond to the call, right? But what we can, because right, human beings aren't that kind of deterministic thing. But what we can do is we can educate for virtue, which is the power to hear the call of what is true and good and beautiful. So this is what I mean when I say this can't be just a technological solution. There has to be an education of virtue, which is saying above and beyond all the ways we can nudge people by bullshitting with them with their salience landscape, people are still capable of hearing a call above and beyond that of the true, the good, and the beautiful. And we can enhance their capacity to hear and respond to that call. That's what virtue means. It means the power of hearing and responding to that call. So, I mean, we can use the data, Chris. This is what I'm proposing back to you. We can use the data to train the virtue that makes them capable. Not into this. We can't manufacture this. Virtue can't manufacture. We can't manufacture virtue, but we can educate it so that we could prepare the person so they can hear the call. They have the power and the capacity to hear the call of what's true, good, and beautiful. And I think that is the way you get out of it. And I mean, that's ultimately the answer right? That's why Frodo carries the ring. The Fellowship can't carry the ring. Boromir can't carry the ring, but Frodo hears something that right that keeps calling him beyond right any of. But it's really, and so we can't lack compassion in this. It is really hard for people to hear the call of the true, the good, and beautiful if they're in a scarcity mentality. Don't preach someone to the gospel if they need a coat. That's also the Bible, right? So that's my answer to you.
Yes, I hope across, at least in this country and many countries around the world, from the day we are born, we are in our school system, we are taught some core values. Right? As in, if you hit somebody in class, you get in trouble. Right? Not good. Being a bully, you get in trouble. Right? So some of these core, we were taught to share, literally, from early childhood. Stop holding onto your toy, share it with your brother, right? Look, these are, and as you know, a lot of our core belief systems or whatever come back to 7 years old and earlier. A lot of those are still baked into our neural networks, right? So to revive the things we've forgotten, because somehow the leaders of the world are literally all bullies, and they are preaching literally to be bullied. If you're not working 100 hours a week and busting your ass, blah, 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 fire all those people. And what it will come down to is fire them and replace them with AI, which is cheaper. Okay. And that is everything that we are trained as core humans, human values and ethos is bad, wrong, absolutely wrong. And we got punished for it. Right. So, those core ethos are a common human training scripture, I believe, across most cultures. Right?
That's Mencius, a Confucius philosopher. This is what he basically argued.
So and I do believe we're in the time with so much chaos coming right here. And by the way, John, if you're okay with it, I will for a moment share some of the stuff I did do to try and tackle this. But there clearly just wasn't enough chaos yet. So the stuff I was doing was less effective than I'd hoped.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was behind the scenes, going after some really bad people, not just not like, beyond the politics.
Yeah, you told me.
Power. I'm talking about how money actually works and human trafficking, and what fuels the U.S. economy. Basically, a lot of it is like our weapons, industrial, weapons manufacturing business. Like, who do we sell those to? We sell them to folks around the world who want to overthrow a government, and where a lot of those rebels getting their money from? Well, human trafficking, blood diamonds, drug cartel type stuff, right? So I spent, and so I'm sharing this for the first time ever in a public format, because
Thank you, Andy.
because I have 2 kids, and this work was. I had in my backpack at all times. I had multiple phones because I was speaking to the press behind the scenes, and I was working with a lot of people globally around the world to take down really bad players, bad actors, huge, human trafficking cartel people, and it was dangerous as shit. I didn't go anywhere without $10,000 of cash in my backpack, $10,000 of small gold coins, my medications, and a passport ready to drop and go.
Yeah.
And I spend a lot of time around the world and working with, if you want to call them operatives around the world. Uh, um, let's call them Jedi's for good, who are top 10 in the world at whatever they do, collaborating behind the scenes to reduce suffering in the world. And at times it felt like I was beating my head against the wall, and my poor kids and my ex-wife had to hear me say, yeah, I'm going to succeed or die trying. Because what else am I doing alive if I'm not trying to reduce suffering and fix all this stuff? And this was really at the top of the media industry as well, right? And I ended up basically pushing myself way too hard because it was the right thing to do. And I blew out my adrenals, and my kidneys were failing, and I was walking around in ridiculous chronic pain. And by the time I finally got hospitalized, they told me I had 2 weeks to live.
Oh,
Yeah. And that was all thanks to Jordan Hall, who said, you're not allowed to die.
yeah.
You're not allowed to die. Go take whatever your brain is, go fix it, figure out what you did to yourself, heal, because the world's going to need you in the future. Right? So I really did try, and a lot of amazing human out there are trying, right? And I will say that I feel like it's a different time now,
Yeah.
and partially because people are more aware, and which means they're more afraid. So here comes the thing called fear in, maybe for a good, right? Because now there really is something to be afraid of, right? I mean, like, sorry, like, oh, your kids aren't going to be able to find a job. You might not be able to find a job, and like, that's a real. That is very, very, very real, right? So maybe we do have something to be afraid of, and I think people are starting to wake up to it. And clearly, like, I was in the Supreme Court, chambers talking about social media and the algorithms, going back 9 or 10 years ago. Nobody knew what I was talking about.
Right.
Really,
Right.
I was trying to solve for a problem in the future because it was just obvious to me, beyond obvious to me what was coming. And God forbid when AI got behind it, like, oh God, game over.
Yeah.
Game over humans. So I tried, but I believe people are starting to wake up through this thing called fear. And when the fear comes, and listen, unfortunately, it's going to be a lot more pain along the way until we're able to actually change ourselves and change society. But it is my job and everybody else who we've collaborated with over the years to make sure there's the least amount of collateral damage along the way so we can arrive at a way better solution than we have now, right? To being human. And so just there are a lot of people out there now working. Tristan Harris is one of them, right? Jordan's one of them. I'm one of them.
Yeah.
A whole bunch of other, like SEAL Team 6.
I think we are too, Chris and I.
Clearly you are. And clearly what you're proposing with Sunday Labs,
Yeah. Sunday Labs. That's what we've got, a fellowship of these kinds of people. Yes.
that's what it is. It's the fellowship.
Yeah.
There's a real fellowship out there. I think what people can do is, you do this podcast, other people, first of all, learn, listen and learn, listen and learn, listen and learn. And I would say anybody who's got capital out there, who owns all the capital? The people, right? Put it behind the right companies that are literally trying to solve these problems.
Yeah.
And finally, because of AI and data and all this stuff, there are real solutions being built. And whether it's you guys who do it with Sunday Labs, it is mission critical that somebody cracks this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, what it means, human, an individual, it's over. And I've been saying this to people for a long time. Like, I'm only on this planet for like a blink of an eye. And literally after the human species, maybe we've been around for 100,000, 200,000 years. And all of our ancestors who suffered and tried to do something, they're all dead, but we're on the cutting edge of time and space. Okay? And on our watch, on my watch, this whole thing's going to go to shit. Like, no. Like, no. Use my language. No fucking way. Right? And therefore, if you've got influence, if you've got relationships, if you like whatever it is, like whatever you got, and if you got money, put it to the right companies and to the people who are out there. And I'm no longer on the front line because my body got destroyed. I'm trying my best, but like, what's money in a future that sucks?
Chris, how did you want to? There was a lot there again.
Well, that was very moving, Andy. Yeah. And now you have quite a story. It's just really extraordinary. And that's only a piece of it, I know.
The details are spooky and scary and
Yeah.
painful.
One of the things that occurs to me, just one little tiny glint of all of this, is that the reckoning of each person's reckoning with his own or her own susceptibility is key. You sort of said that way at the beginning of our conversation, but it's sort of worth saying again that none of us are actually immune to these forces. And that's a very threatening thing. Yeah, I mean, the question I asked earlier was precisely spoken on behalf of the perspective that is threatened by the idea that a person can be steered in this way, that a person is not all together and that a person doesn't pilot their own vessel. And that's a very threatening thing to most people, and most people will insist that they are immune and impervious to these things. And there's something very deep and existentially threatening about the dread of knowing that you are not at the center of your own movements, of your own decisions. And perhaps there's a little bit of a dialectic here, which is to say there's a little bit of an irony in that the way of reaching or remembering or recollecting the higher form, if I can put it that way, the higher possibility of what it means to be a human being is first down, like down through the inferno, first down through the ugliness, first down through the decrepitudes, down through the frailties, down through the impulsivity, down through the sinfulness, if I can go that far. Which is to say that we're all in some ways still very much animal. In some ways we are all still very, very much misbegotten in how easily we can be steered by our fears and desires at their basest. And that we have to reckon with that and look it full in the face in order to take the full scope of this problem into account. And through doing that, then our gaze can lift. And that's one of the things that you've both said it or alluded to this in some way, direct or indirect. That's one of the things I'm taking away here, is that there's no way up except in some ways kind of down through ourselves by looking at how vulnerable each of us is to this first.
Yeah, I mean, I think since you're using sort of Dante, I mean, you have to go down to acknowledge the sin before you can recover the image of God.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Well, John, both of you, I'll put it back to you. So what I went through over whatever that 6-year period of time, and then my recovery in and out of hospitals for like a year, and like to finally kind of get to this place of exactly what you're talking about. And let's just call it a spiritual essence of goodness. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I don't wish that on my own worst enemy, that level of torture. So when we talk about going down and into the inferno, Chris, like there's hell, and then there's like the sub basement, and then there's the room that you really don't want to know about. I was held there for probably a good 6 to 9 months, and like, no. So I'm hoping when I talk about the least amount of collateral damage, I don't just mean pain, I also mean suffering, right? And I'm hoping, and I truly believe it is possible. Yes, we have to do our own self-reckoning. A lot of people, in the spiritual world say it's not without, go within. You talk about going down, right? These are all good terms for it. I think it also has a lot to do with a tremendous amount to do with forgiveness. And so interesting how we keep coming back to the Bible. But
the whole theme of sin, repentance, and redemption and forgiveness has been rife through this whole conversation, I must say.
As Jesus said, forgive them, they know not what they've done, right? So if we look to everybody else who's been like walking around in an artificially driven, manipulative, media-driven world of what we all believe to some degree of commonality was reality. Right? This is how we're supposed to behave, which is compete and protect ourselves and fear. Right? And if we're able to kind of forgive others because they were just in the program, then we can forgive ourselves because we were just in the program. Right?
Yeah.
And that to me is absolutely, and I spent a bunch of time in Rwanda, right, where the genocide was, where the Hutus slaughtered 1 million Tutsi in 100 days, neighbor to
Yeah.
neighbor, axes, knives, whatever. And then Kagame came in and brought about forgiveness.
Yeah.
And the way he did it, I think it's a super important story because he went back to the origin of what it meant to be Hutu or Tutsi, and it was in Belgium. We were trying to extract value out of Rwanda, right? They had lots of minerals and stuff. And the best way to do that was there was no ethnicity called Hutu or Tutsi. They said, oh, we're going to need a smaller amount of the upper class, it's called Tutsi, and a larger amount of people that they can control called the Hutu. And there's no way to cross barriers, and therefore this is the controlling class, right? And clearly, after enough abuse to the Hutu, and then the Tutsi started getting arrogant and said to the Belgium, like, we want more. Stop extracting our minerals. The Belgium said, "Up, it's time to slap down the Tutsi and maybe turn it around to the Hutu in charge." And they just pumped through the airwaves, radio airwaves. The Tutsi are about to all kill you. Get to them first, and that's what ignited, right?
Yeah.
So what Kagame kind of did was lifted the veil, the revelation of, wait a second, we were being programmed by an external force called, right, the Belgium, to treat each other this way. And then they were able to forgive each other and then forgive themselves. And when I go over there, it's like neighbor to neighbor, like, this man killed my son, but I'm living next to him in harmony. I was brought to my knees in literally tears, almost in agony. How could this level of forgiveness exist? But it does. And and I'm just going to say one more thing. I know it's a lot. I spent a bunch of time in the island of Kauai in Hawaii, and I got very deep into the tradition of Ho'oponopono. Right?
Yeah.
There's a Ho'oponopono prayer. It says, "Please forgive me and my ancestors for everything that myself or my ancestors might have done to you or your ancestors. And can you please forgive me and and I forgive you and your ancestors. Please forgive me and my ancestors for anything we might have done to you or your ancestors, and vice versa." Right? And now and until we can bend time, like, right this very second is the beginning of time. We can't go backwards. So this is the beginning of the rest of time. So how do we get through this lens of like ultimate forgiveness? And I'm hoping, Chris, will help people through. They don't have to go through the sub basement private torture room of hell that I was in to finally get through this awakening period. I'm hoping that there's an easier process through, and it's like almost like a greater awakening through fear and some pain that like pops us out.
Well, since we're doing Dante, you can go to the bottom, but you don't have to suffer it if you've got Virgil with you, right? And I think what we're looking for is, can we find how to use this technology and, as we've argued, the culture and the spiritual reformation that have to go around the technology in order to give people a Virgil that can take them to the place where they can then see Beatrice and be called. That's what I think we're all talking about here. And I think I see this as, this wedding together of the technology and the culture, and and trying to orient it towards the possibility of spiritual revelation. I think that's the core vision of Sunday Labs. That's what we're trying to do. I know I know it's what I'm also doing in my own work. Um, I will never be enlightened or a sage. That is, I have some really good evidence for that. But I do aspire to be a Virgil, a virtuous pagan at least, that can maybe help people on their way. And I, 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 I just want to say that I see you becoming a Virgil, Andy. I see you. Look, I've been in hell. I've done it. I know how to. I'm going to be. I'm going to be like somebody who's already gone on the pilgrimage. I'm going to tell you this and show you this, and I think that's. Um, what am I trying to do? I'm trying to say thank you. I appreciate. I want to honor the way you're doing that. I think we need more Virgils. And unfortunately, we're running out of time as well. And I'm going to shut up, and I'm going to let Chris say whatever he wants to say at the end here. But my last words are going to be, other than when we end everything, thank you so much, Andy. And I hope you and I, well, and obviously Chris, but I hope we can all keep in touch. I hope we can keep in communication. Maybe we'll do another one of these down the road. If we can be, I shouldn't offer Chris. If I can be of service to you the way you have been of service to us, please let me know. I commit right now to doing that.
And vice versa. Yeah. And over to Chris, but thank you for giving me I guess the courage, and to know that I'm probably in the clear now from bad actors coming after me. Yeah, it's time to share the story, and it's time to. It's weird, 53 years old, to step into a realm of a modern day elder, like hear the lessons learned, mistakes made, path through suffering, blah, 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 and maybe an easier way. So thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah. Thank you, Andy. Thank you both. This was really good. This will continue. It has to. Interesting where we ended up. This very powerful mythic motif that's full of something both very, very personal and very, very cosmic all at the same time. And it perhaps just occurs to me to emphasize that for a moment. There's an individual dimension where every single person is profoundly implicated by this. And if they look into the reflection of it, we'll see something that will be very ugly and will be very, in a certain light, will almost seem damnable. And yet, by looking into that reflection with the right kind of guide and with the right kind of reminder and the right kind of revelation, the movement from ignorance into knowledge is also the thing that makes forgiveness possible and sustained. So it occurs to me that these are all very much of a piece.